Okay. Other questions? Yes, right here.
Yeah, hi Shobna.
Hi.
I really appreciate what you've been sharing. And what I want to know from you is like, should there be any business model in place for a woman entrepreneur? Did you follow any business model when you started and when you progressed and stuff?
Very much so, because though the business model may keep evolving and may keep changing, but initially for you to validate, why do you have a right to win? Why should the idea that you have, why should you germinate that? And what are going to be the financials? Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, passion is good, but the bottom line is very important. And if you're going to keep bleeding, then there isn't going to be a tomorrow. So it's very important to put some sort of a framework and have some sort of a preliminary business plan, because that helps you also, it helps you in your clarity, and it helps you arrive at many decisions which you would not be able to in the absence of actually having a plan on paper. And even otherwise, if you as an entrepreneur want to go and you want to raise funds, I think pretty much the first thing that people will ask you for is your business plan, is your level of confidence in being able to execute that plan. It's not enough just to have a plan, and the level of passion that comes with it.
Great. You had your hand up? Yeah. Can we have the mic here, please? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, after that, just pass the mic in front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
हाय शोभना एंड वनीता, मेरा ये पूछना था कि जब आप इस मकाम पर आते हैं, व्हेन यू स्टार्ट, आपको बहुत से स्ट्रगल होते हैं, बहुत से किस्म के लोगों से आप मिलते हैं, बहुत से नेगेटिव एक्सपीरियंस होते हैं, जैसे हम पहले बात कर रहे थे रुथलेस, वी मीट सो मेनी पीपल. तो कहीं ऐसा होता है कि ऊपर आते आते आपके अंदर की जो एक सॉफ्टनेस है वो ख़त्म होने लगती है?
होती है कभी कभी, और कभी कभी होती है, कभी कभी मूड खराब होता है, कभी कभी यू बिकम अ लिटिल शार्प. एंड टू सर्वाइव यू नीड टू बी पैरानॉइड. Who had said this? Only the paranoid survive. Only the paranoid survive. And you need to be paranoid. And sometimes you become slightly harsh because you don't want to be taken for a ride. You feel that, you need to have a thick hide and go through with it. And I'm sure somewhere it does alter your behavioral pattern. But I think the basic you that resides within each one of us, when we are relaxed, when we are with people we love, when we are with family, I think that doesn't change. But what happens is you're short of time, you're slightly abrasive sometimes, you've got 20 things playing on your mind. And so for the external world, you're absolutely right. I think part of it changes, and I think part of it is also some kind of a self-harming mechanism that you adopt.
क्योंकि हमें इस किस्म के लोग मिलते हैं तो हमें जो अगला आदमी मिलता है हमें लगता है शायद ये भी वैसा ही होगा.
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
तो हम उस माइंड ब्लॉक से चलते हैं. तो कहाँ वो लाइन, एक सीमा कहाँ निर्धारित की जाए? कभी-कभी बहुत पशुपेश होता है.
I think जब तक आप रियलाइज करते हैं कि अंदर से आप नहीं बदले हैं, that's good enough. But
बदलना चाहिए भी नहीं ना?
नहीं, वो बदलना नहीं चाहिए.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, in front. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Emily Harrison. I moved to Bombay about 4 years ago and started a company here called Innovade. We sort of advise celebrities on their philanthropy and set up foundations for them, along with corporates and SESR. But, I have a lot of people say to me, what has been the most difficult thing about, coming to a place like India and starting a business on your own, and sort of expecting me to come back with, I've had so many difficulties with dealing with government and all these different logistical kind of things. But my answer is always, the most difficult thing I always face is that how do you get that balance or that control over, yes, having to have that business acumen and making those balanced decisions based on plans and those sorts of things. But then also, we are, as women, emotional beings, and particularly when you give birth to a company, it is your baby, and you cannot help but have an emotional response at times. So what are the things, I guess this is for both of you ladies, that you do to manage those emotions and those, I ride the roller coaster. I think that's part of my personality as well, but to manage those lows and manage yourselves, because when you're not 100%, or when you're experiencing one of those lows, you can't lead, you can't really manage the business in a proper fashion.
You first. You know, for me, it is, you have to take it as a given that you can't be on a constant high and you'll never be on a constant low. And I think some of those, if you look at it as a challenge, I think somebody once said that if you are clear on the goal or purpose, then you will deal with the obstacles as they come. Whereas if you're seeing the obstacles, you lose sight of the goal. So I think that was very well said, because I think in pursuing whatever you're desirous of, you know, you're creating a new company, a new enterprise, an NGO, whatever it might be, I think there's bound to be things that happen which you were not envisaging. But I think, as was said earlier by Shobna as well, you know, if you've got conviction, if you've got a sense of purpose, if you know by and large what you want to create, then you will learn to deal with the obstacles. And I think oftentimes we forget that there are a lot of people, you know, that you're connected with, or some that you may not be connected with, who are truly there and willing to help. It's just that we oftentimes don't reach out and ask for help. But I'll let Shobna give her point of view too.
I pretty much feel that, you know, these ups and downs are very much part of the cycle of any enterprise, of any business. And you can't have constant ups all the time. There are many times when we just plateau, and that by itself is very frustrating, because you're trying to get things done and nothing seems to be moving. And sometimes one feels very helpless, and it's like, you know, you're just up against a blank wall. But I always feel that, you know, at the end of the day, whatever you've striven for more hard is that much more precious. And believe me, I've found that whenever you go through these so-called obstacles and you go through an obstacle race, you just come out that much stronger for it. You actually do. It sounds very sort of, you know, it sounds being a little pessimistic, but I have gone through that. And I personally feel that it contributes a lot to actually just firming you up as a person and being able to help you cope with things much better. And I just take the experience in its perspective and feel, well, this just had to happen, but don't lose sight of your ultimate goal and just move on. And that's where, if you have the passion, you will move on. There will be obstacles, you just can't have a free run, but you will move on.
Great, I think we have time for 2, maybe 3 questions. So, okay, one at the back. Anita's coming with the mic. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be a hard one. I've started my own PR agency about 6 or 7 months back. And even though the Times Group and everyone is so important because of readership, I have profound respect for the HT Group, because I do know that that paper is one of the few ones which are not sold yet and have not come into the media net.
Move your mic a little away. It's not very clear here.
Sorry, I said I have profound respect for the HT Group, because I know that a part of that paper is not sold, or not entirely sold at all. And even though people go for readership, I think that's something that you've stuck by. Coming to the question is, when you talk about core values, many a times core values is inculcated by the leader and is passed on to successors going down. But many times when you go out for external financing and you have shareholders and investors kicking in, they may not have the same core values that you're driven by. And they may look at profitability as well, because that is also a large part of business. How would you deal with that? And I think it would be for both of you ladies out there to address that when you have financing issues and you look at external investors and profitability, how do you be able to retain that sort of core value that you stand for, even amongst an external group like your shareholders and your investors?
You know, the first part that you spoke about is, unfortunately, practice that none of us in the media can be very proud of. It is prevalent. It has come up even in Parliament a couple of times. It's related not only to, you know, MediaNet and placing articles for a price without actually saying that it's paid for. I mean, I have no problems if you put out something which is paid for and you write on it that this content has been provided by, or you call it advertorial or whatever. Problem is when you're actually fooling the reader in a sense. Unfortunately, it is a practice that has been prevalent for a while with a certain section of the press. As far as the values go, irrespective of the financing needs that a company might have, I believe that the values are initially laid down along with the promoter, but along with the team who actually works for you, because it's the foot soldiers who actually give direction to the organization or give it the identity. And therefore, I believe that irrespective of who may come in for whatever investment needs that you spoke about, the core values is each and every executive of that company who adheres to it, who goes out. It's in his or her behavior. It's in the values they uphold. So for instance, you spoke about paid content. One of the values we have is that, the integrity of the brand cannot be compromised. So if any one of the 8,000 employees is ever found compromising that, the door's the only way for them. And so those are the people who actually have to day in and day out breathe those values, live those values, set an example by those values. So I don't think any investor coming in for financing needs is really concerned about the core values. If an investor comes in, they're actually looking at what kind of a return they make. So long as you're promising them their return, and you can get the return if your company only does well. And it won't unless you're actually adhering to the core values that you've laid down for yourself.
In fact, I would add to that and say that companies that have done well over a period of time are those companies where the values, the behavior, and the results they produce are actually very consistent with each other. You can't be successful for a long time if you've compromised either your values or, you're living by values which don't make sense for the business. So I think companies that are well integrated are those companies where, the behavioral manifestation of what they stand for is so deeply ingrained in the people who work, in the people they work with, as the example that was given here, that is really then the only way of surviving. I think the chaos occurs when employees, vendors, other stakeholders are not clear what values drive the organization. We'll just take one last question.
That answer was fantastic because even that's what I have been thinking, that values are very important. Coming to my question to both of you, I have a very specific thing. Whenever a lady takes a decision, she is leading the team. The way she takes the decision is not necessarily looked upon as a boss is taking decisions, but sometimes, at least I have faced, is that one lady is taking a decision. And if there are quite a few of male subordinates, what I'm trying to say, a male thinking about a situation and guiding the staff, and a lady thinking about a situation, and when you are working together. Have you ever gone through something like this, and how would you deal if you are put in such a situation? That's one.
Well, I think once the woman has earned the respect of her peers, her colleagues, I don't think then the decision would be challenged on a gender basis. But initially for her to actually start getting the acceptability, for her to actually mark her presence as a professional, who's come up because of her competencies, that's where it takes a woman much longer perhaps than what it takes a man. But having arrived in a position, at least I can't foresee too many situations where a decision taken by a woman is sort of challenged or looked upon differently because it's coming by a woman. I don't think the gender issues actually then come in. In fact, some very spontaneous and great ideas do come from the participation, and I think gender brings in a lot of diversity. In fact, very consciously and proactively in our various departments, we do try and see that there should be some sort of gender parity as well, because there are some inherent skills that women have which men don't. And therefore, I think having a blend of both actually does help in having, the kind of diversity which I think is very conducive for a company's growth. So we very proactively try and get some gender parity. So I haven't really found too much of a situation where a decision taken is actually seen through the prism of gender.
I agree. In fact, I think this is an interesting one to connect with, what we saw before lunch when Malavika presented, the choreography she had done on different perspectives. So there are 3 different people looking at the same thing, and processing that same information differently to come at different conclusions. So I don't think it's gender. I think it's about our experiences. It's about what we've, what our prior experience has been, what we've perceived in life, what is our awareness. One of the things that we find in companies is that those individuals who worked in multiple industries or who've worked in different countries actually look at things very, very differently. So it is that lens that we use, it's the mental model, which is not necessarily a gender mental model, but also has a lot to do with your prior experience and, what you yourself have been through before.